Hey everybody, how's it going? Just wanted to jump in, give you guys an update on all the projects we're working on in the shop. Yeah, it was my birthday this weekend. I just got back we went to the World of Wheels car show at the convention center, looking at hot rods and motorcycles and all that kind of stuff. My daughter took me there, so my daughter and my wife, and then we had dinner. So I just wanted to jump into the shop and let's go to the bench and kind of show you where I'm at with different projects. Some I'm waiting for parts on and others I'm still working on. But let's get back to the bench and let's look at that Poolin 5200 among other things. Okay guys, definitely going to do a bench cleanup this week. Bench is just horrendous. It's not dirty, it's just disorganized. You know, I got parts and tools. A lot of times I clean up before I go in, but some days I don't have time, and so I'll leave the mess and hopefully get it cleaned up the next time I'm in here. The Poolin 5200 counter vibe, you guys really enjoyed this thing. Just something different. Again, I am not a saw collector per se. I collect for the channel, and I'm using my backup camera mount right now. But I collect saws for the channel, random stuff that I just think would be cool to have. You know, vintage saws mostly, but just saws that you don't see. I misspoke. This is 85 cc's. It is a reed saw. It is glorious. These things will cut, you know, this thing will cut with a 660. You know, any of the 90 cc saws, a 390. These things rip. I have had this thing in the wood. So one thing I'm going to do here is this saw. Again, I just put this thing back together loosely. This saw has a Tillotson HS carb on it, which is my favorite. The Tillotson HS for modding saws, I just find they're not super picky. And they're easily tunable. You get a lot of fuel from them. Even if you start going nuts on a saw, I find they aren't too picky, and they will still deliver a lot of fuel. Now this one, I don't know if you guys can see down in there. This one has a governor in it. Okay, this is an HS 176A. Okay, I think it's about a 17.5 millimeter Venturi. I'm gonna procure a 272 XP carb and throw that in here, and that'll be unlimited. That should fix any fueling issues I may have once this saw is ported. So we're gonna do that. I had a couple of people ask me why I didn't do all the mounts. They're better than they were. They are still a little scungy. Well, the mounts I used are random mounts. These are actually Pioneer mounts, and I don't have a ton of them. I would rather replace one broken mount in 6 saws and have 6 saws usable than 6 broken mounts, or one broken mount and 6 slightly movable mounts and only have one saw fixed. That's just my rationale. You do what you do. So anyways, I'm going to order a new carb, and I may have found boys and reeds for this saw, which would make this thing rowdy. So anyways, that's where we're at with this. I'm just going to throw this to the side. Parts, friends. The Harley. I ordered a couple things for the Harley. This is a mid-USA. This is a oil gauge. We'll install this in a video. Screws into the block and you run the line up. My bike doesn't have an oil gauge. I think that's an important thing to have, especially when I'm first firing the stop. I have had the oil pump apart. It'd be nice to know that I have oil pressure when I first fire the saw. Okay, and this unit right here, I ordered new fasteners for my motor. A lot of my fasteners are corroded. They look horrible, so I ordered a bunch of new stainless fasteners for my bike. They're just 1/4 easy to get. I don't know what's in here, actually. The mail's been, it hasn't been horrible lately, but it's been fairly slow. Oh, and I ordered lock nuts for it, but I ordered a bunch of 1/4 fasteners, and we'll replace what we need to replace in this thing as we go. Well, that's the main thing right there. Okay, and another thing, just gonna put this down. Yep, I do order from Amazon sometimes, among other places. I always say it though, 98% of my saw parts come from Wolf Creek Saw Shop. But the only thing Ryan doesn't have that I order is OEM carburetors. We'll talk about that in a minute. I ordered some carbs. And that's really about it, friends. He has pretty much everything, maybe the odd fuel line. He has pretty much everything that I use on a day-to-day, so I really don't need to go anywhere. Front piston for my Harley. I was filing rings this week, getting that stuff all prepped. I have my cylinders honed. I checked and rechecked the piston to bore clearance. Super important in a performance Harley motor, or any motor really, but Harleys get really hot because they are air cooled, so you really want to pick your numbers. There is no set clearance for these pistons, okay? The factory says, the piece of paper that came with this says minimum 2.5 thousandths piston to cylinder wall. That's really, these are 2618 forged pistons. 2618s will grow more than a standard forged piston. These are high performance, they're lightweight. So anyways, JE Piston says at 2.5 thou, these things should not stick. Okay. They do that for, one reason that they do that is these pistons, if you go, you could go 1.5 thou on a regular piston, tighter than 2.5 even. When you have, 2.5, 3.5, 4 thousandths piston to wall clearance, they will rattle when they're cold. That can throw some people off. Now, I'm the kind of guy, I fire my bike up and I let it idle for about 3-4 minutes before I ride it. I've always been like that. The initial firing of the day. So anyways, I measured my cylinder to bore. Again, both or piston to bore. I measured both of them. My cylinders are pretty straight, but they're not perfect. I measured anywhere from like 3.5 to 4 thousandths. So these will rattle when I fire it up. If we can hear it on video, I'll make a video for you guys. But I'm going a little more on the side of caution. And that's where my cylinders ended up. So I don't need a machine shop. They were already machined to pistons that are the same size as this, or to my old pistons. So anyways, I was doing that. And funny story, a guy that's installed 1,000 piston rings, probably true. I'm not even going too far. I actually broke one of the oil scrapers. So as I was filing my rings, I don't know how I did it, friends, but anyway, so I ordered 2 brand new sets of rings for this, and we're going to gap them. Top ring gap is 4.5 thou ring gap for every inch of bore. So you go, this is just under 4 inches. So if you wanted to do it that way, 4 inches at 4.5 thou, you end up with about 18 thousandths. Okay, so I'm going to shoot for that. 18 is a little oversized. If you guys are ever filing rings in a performance motor, a little bit bigger is better than a little bit smaller. When these things heat up, you can actually butt the ring ends, and that's when you blow up your motor. So I'm going to go about, 18 thou on the top ring. Second ring needs to be bigger than the top ring, and that is to let any compression gas get through there. The second ring is not a compression ring in this motor, or in a lot of motors, it is just an oil scraper. Okay, so that second ring, I'm going to do those at about 19 to 20 thousandths, couple thou bigger. And then your oil ring, that has a minimum clearance. Minimum spec on that is 15 thousandths ring gap. These are at about 25, so I'm not even going to worry about them. So I'm waiting for parts till first week of April is what it is. Always waiting for parts. And we got the 064 AV. I haven't forgotten about this thing. As you guys know, I got this thing running and it's a monster. But that still bothers me, friends. I have these somewhere. Somewhere in this shop I have a bin of these little screws. See how this one's like super mangled? It's very, very hard to get off. See that? You gotta get it just in the right spot. There you go. Okay. Anyways, I did that video trying to fix the carb on this, and I think what's going on is the check valve in the nozzle, the main nozzle, is no longer good. Well, I looked online for check valves and nozzles for this WJ carb. I can't find one. So I ordered a new Walbro carb for this when it gets in. Or no, I actually ordered the Tillotson variant. This saw has a Walbro. I'm going to put a Tillotson in here, and that should fix this thing up, and then this thing will be ready to rock and roll. Like I said, this is going to be a giveaway saw. One of you guys will get this saw, but I'm not even considering sending it out, so don't ask. I will let you guys know what's happening with this, but this saw here could not be a problem. I will not give a saw out to anybody if I don't think it's going to run properly. It's one of my life goals. I don't like to create problems for people. I like to create solutions. So, and again, this saw runs great. It starts, it idles, but it doesn't tune properly. The high jet in this thing, I could turn the low jet out on this thing forever till it's not even installed, and this thing will never get too rich. So that's a problem because this saw does not return to idle. Back to the bad idea saw. I think what we're going to do is we're going to attempt to start this thing. Look at that piston, friends. Can you tell that this thing's been in and out, in and out? Somebody was like, oh, you don't oil your pistons for mock-up? Nope, I don't. Because not on a saw like this, going in and out, in and out, in and out, grinding, putting it back together. No, I'll just use another piston before I'll do that. Anyways, friends, I don't know. So remember, I decided one day, I'm like, hey, I wonder if I can put a 288 top end on a 266, because I feel, well, the 266 has a huge amount of case volume for the amount of stroke it has, okay? And the only way to fix that, really, is to stroke it, which is really hard on a chainsaw because you got your clutch and your charging system, okay? You can't just put a longer rod on. I've had people ask me that. A longer rod will change the relationship of the rod in the stroke, but it won't actually, it'll change your piston speed, but it won't change your stroke. What you need to do is you need to stroke it, change where the pin is, change where the rod pin is in relation to everything else and put it together. Okay. But then I decided, well, what's another way that we can move more air through the bottom end? Well, a bigger piston. Okay. So we ended up with this combination. This is just a no-name cylinder. Might be a Farmer Tech. I don't even know. It's not marked. Okay. Well, I ended up with this top end here. Okay. And you can see it's a 54 millimeter. Okay. The biggest piston you get on a 272 chassis is a 52 millimeter. Well, geez, this is a lot of work. And it has been, friends. It's a lot of work to get what? You know, this... Basically, friends, this thing, after I'm done, is going to be just under 80 cc's. It really... It's... All this work for 8 cc's. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. And I got some plating issues in the cylinder, and I'm not super happy with it. But what we end up with is... We end up with a 66 Magnum piston. Again, we got a lot of work to do to this thing. Okay. Now, I was actually having some... There's a couple problems with this setup, friends. I don't want any of you guys to try this until I make this thing run, because I don't want you wasting time and parts. It's actually really funny. This piston catches on the bottom here, okay? So I'm not sure why, but it moves completely free in this bore. Now, I was having problems, once I machined this, I was having problems with it kind of relaxing, meaning the bore here was about half a 10,000th, and we could check all this with my measuring tools, but the bore seemed to be a little smaller here. So what I actually did, friends, is I tapered this piston a bit. It is all scratched up, but now look, it moves freely in there. We don't seem to have any issues, okay? And again, remember, I made this. Now, the reason why I took a break here, friends, is that I kept getting this thing 80% to be able to mock it up, and then I was hitting walls, or I was wrecking cylinders. Okay, now this is probably not the cylinder I want to finish this project with, but it's got some ugly, ugly plating on the bottom here. But I just want to make proof of concept. Now, we know I have to cut the bottom of this piston off. We know this piston at bottom dead center may hit, okay? But we're going to send it anyways. Also, friends, this piston at bottom dead center is going to come down. See, that's the thing. When I put this thing together, look, it's tight there until you get it past. Not sure why. I can't figure out why this thing kind of grabs. But we're going to... Now, the other problem is, friends, this piston at bottom dead center probably ends up here. Let's look at this again. Hold on. Let's mock it up. Okay, let's quickly mock this thing back up. Again, I had to take a break, friends. And I'm filming, and, you know, like, if you're not making progress on a project, you're running a YouTube channel, I can't make videos on nothing, you know? Like, hey, guys, I've got nothing done on this project again. Come follow along. Nobody's gonna, you know... I mean, some of you guys are here no matter what, I get it, but nobody's... I don't even want to make videos like that. Sometimes I'll do an update video like this, but you guys know the deal. Anyways, I was hitting walls with this. It's been fun. I like yakking with Scotty Wilson. He builds those crazy 86ers. I think his projects are nuts, and I think he thinks my projects are nuts. So, while I'm mocking this up, friends, the McCullough is almost ready to go back together. It needed a few things. Oh, this wrist pin is rubbish. But interesting. This must not be the right wrist pin for this. And again, friends, this is not the bottom end we're using anymore, and it's also not the wrist pin. This was just a mock-up junk bottom end that I had. Hold on a second. Okay, let's do this again. Like, I have bins of wrist pins, different tapers, and because, you know, I never throw anything out, friends. I'm on a farm here. Okay, that's kind of stiff. I don't know why, but we're gonna leave it like that for now. It's probably the bearing. Okay, so what I want to do right now, just so you guys understand, let's go right to the bottom here, and I'm just gonna hold this in place. You guys can see we have our squish set. Alright guys, remember, I got the squish set, like this thing's ready to go together. So basically the only thing stopping me from doing this is You can see we got proper blowdown. We got to do a little bit of work to the transfers. Okay, I'm going to put the timing key straight up and down. Okay, and all I want to do right now is, let's see if I got the right marker. I might not. I'm just going to take this and scratch this piston. I know some of you guys are like, geez, this guy's rough. I am a little bit here and there. And yet, they run. So go figure. Okay, right here. Now, as much as I think this thing's ready to run, I think there's a few things I could have done better. And one of them is the, what I need to, I was grinding the sides out here, and see this case right here, friends, I blew a hole in it. What I actually need to do is, I need to not worry about the sides at all. And what I need to do is, I'm going to take another set of cases, because I have many of these. I'm going to take another set of cases, and what I'm actually going to do is I'm only going to grind the front and the back. But here's the biggest problem. I'm running out of space to glue this down. And now I can't run a gasket in this unless I machine my cylinder or my cases, because the, let's see what we got here. I can't run a set of gaskets because I can't drop the cylinder enough. Okay, right here. Okay, so my biggest concern, friends, is this. Look. Okay, let's put your light on here. You guys see the scratch? Here, I'll pull you out. Right there. You guys see that scratch? I don't know if it's showing up. There you go, right there, okay? That's the bottom of my exhaust port. So if I line that up with this right there, that's how much piston is going to go past. Now, I can almost make it so that my skirt goes down further. But I'm not sure, friends, because what's actually happening, I can only machine so much of this case out before I end up with nothing holding the cases together. I don't want this thing to be leaky. So I'm hoping, and I don't expect this to be a saw that's going to run for years, because that right there will probably wear the bottom of the piston out. Okay. But yeah, this thing's going to go down like to there. Okay. You're going to have, it's under 1/4 inch, but you're going to have that sticking out of the bottom. Okay. The idea is on the way up, you do not want this to grab. Okay, so I think my way around that is I'm actually going to hand fit this piston and make it sloppy, because I expect this piston to grow quite a bit. It's going to get hot. Okay, and remember, we got our intake timing exactly where we want it, and there's no glue in there. That was the nice thing about this combination, is I actually hit sane timing numbers without doing anything crazy or putting epoxy in there. But I have a feeling that this may actually blow this saw up. We won't know. And I'm going to spin this thing pretty hard. I want this to be the world's strongest 272. The strongest one I've ever run. My 272s, friends, they make a lot of power. They're very strong. They run good. I definitely get power out of them. But Harvey, the Iron Horse, his saws are his 272s. They're better than mine. I would say they make a little bit more power, but they rev quicker. I don't know how he does it, friends. I've seen inside. I can't. I've seen inside the builds, and I can't figure out what he does different. I'm thinking it's probably something he does with his carburetors that I don't do or I don't know about. But hey, I just call a spade a spade. I don't care who you are, friends. And I've said this before. If a guy builds a good saw, I don't care how he done it. I'll be the first guy to shake his hand and say, darn, you done a gooder there. But anyways, friends, so that's where I'm at with this. The McCall is ready to go back together, more or less. I have to rough assemble it so that we can build a pipe. My only concern with this combination I have right now, this I'm going to glue down. I think that'll be fine. I've been talking to Scott Wilson, and first thing I'm going to do, friends, is I'm going to glue this thing down with some ultra copper. That should do it. It shouldn't leak. It's perfectly machined. Both these surfaces, friends, are I've lapped them together, so they're perfectly mated. And I'll put some ultra copper in there, and that should be fine. If that doesn't work, then I'll have to machine. I'll machine a groove into here on my lathe, and possibly a matching groove into here, and I'll put solder in there. And a lot of people disagreed with that. I know that works. I know guys that have done it, and they say, hey, man, it works. It doesn't leak. Okay, and I think what I'm going to do with this cylinder is run the intake how it is, because, well, it's close to where I would want it. These lower transfers, I'm just going to clean them up a little bit. I'm going to slightly make them bigger, but not really. Uppers are about where I want them. I might do some of my go fast moves that I do. And if I remember correctly, this exhaust port is... Hold on, friends. I was looking in my book. I can't find the notes I wrote down. I'll find them. Anyways, friends, if I remember correctly, my exhaust and everything is where I want it. The biggest problem you find with these weird ideas, big bores, hybrids, whatever you want to call them, the biggest problem you run into, and I've talked to many guys that have done them, they're not easy, but what ends up happening is you borrow from Peter to pay Paul. You always end up with either intake timing that's too long, a cylinder base that's too thin, which this is, an exhaust roof that's way too high, or funky transfer blowdown. You always end up with something you don't like. This saw here, the reason why I kept puttering around with this cylinder is that my numbers are pretty much exactly where I want them with no porting. My two biggest complaints with this right now, I inadvertently, because again, it's hard to see all this stuff when you're machining. I inadvertently machined down some of this, some of where the decomp goes. So my idea is, because you can see there's still the full seat there, I'm going to take a decomp, I'm going to machine a groove into it, and I'm going to cut the head off of it, and I'm going to put some glue in there, and I'm going to screw it in, tapering it so that it hits the hole, the decomp hole, so it hits the seat there. Kind of like a jet seat in a carburetor, and I'll screw that in, and that should seal that. It would be nice to have a decomp on this build, but I don't think that's going to work. Other than that, friends, I ordered a new... I'm going to order a couple new carburetors, new Tillotson HSs, the biggest ones that were available in these saws. I hope that's enough carb for this. The only other option is a 282 or a 288 carb. Ooh. Hey, Morgan, that would be something. I wonder how close this is to fitting. Wow, it's actually very, very close. That would be nice. This is Morgan's UFO pipe that he was making for a while there. It was beautiful the way it was, but I actually ended up painting it because I didn't want it to rust, friends. Morgan's 10 times. I know I'm the tin man. I have the word tin in my name, but Morgan is 10 times the metal worker that I am when it comes to forming metal and that. And I really appreciate that he made that for me. But okay, friends, I think we're good for now. That's what's going on. Stay tuned, and we're working on about 3 different projects at once, but that's my style. Okay, guys, well, we're just waiting for parts for various projects, and I hope to get my Harley running very soon. I feel better having an oil pressure gauge. Just for the first time I run it, you can hear when a Harley's getting thin on oil because the lifters start to collapse and they start getting clacky. But when I first fire that thing up, it'd be really nice to know I have oil pressure because, well, I took the oil pump apart, and I don't trust anything Even though I'm a halfway decent mechanic, sometimes, friends, I still don't trust, that I put that pump back together right or that everything's meshing. So we'll be waiting for those parts, carburetors, etc. We'll just keep plugging away at the McCullough. I got to build a pipe for that thing, and I'll show you guys that. That's the hardest saw to pipe because there's no room. And we'll keep working at the Bad Idea saw. I really like to get that together and running for buck and stock. Maybe we'll blow it up once. I don't know, but um, that's a project that I've been thinking of for years, and I'd like to get more power out of a 272. That is my favorite chassis to work on. Anyhow, friends, I'll let you guys go. Thanks for watching. Take her easy. Later.